When James Gunn took the keys to the DC Universe, he wasn't just taking a job. He was inheriting a smoking crater. After years of mixed reactions and box office struggles, choosing Superman as his first project was borderline suicidal. The shadow of the Snyderverse loomed large, and let's be honest, Henry Cavill was beloved. He looked the part, he had the jaw. For a lot of people, he was Superman. So when Gunn announced Cavill wasn't coming back, the challenge went from difficult to, why would you ever do this to yourself? But Gunn had a plan. Strip away the deconstruction, ditch the angst, and go back to basics. For me, it worked. Hi guys, it's Mac from Scene Shift. Before I break this down, I have to clarify something. I love comic book movies. Specifically, I love when comic book movies actually look and behave like comic books. So in many ways, this movie was made exactly for me. It didn't just succeed, it felt like someone finally remembered that Superman can be fun without being stupid. But why did it work? How did Gunn take a character everyone dismissed as boring and make him feel brand new? The answer is simple. Gunn made Superman's greatest power his greatest vulnerability. Every other Superman movie makes him invincible and asks, can he win? This one makes him breakable and asks, will he survive? That shift, from power fantasy to survival story, changes everything. To understand that, we need to look at what came before, because Superman has been through multiple reinventions, each reflecting the anxieties of its era. Richard Donner's 1978 Superman gave us the definitive optimist, a hero who believed the best in humanity because he was raised by good people in Kansas. That film's DNA is pure hope, wrapped in primary colors, and John Williams' soaring score. Bryan Singer's Superman Returns tried to resurrect that Donner magic in 2006, treating the original films with religious reverence. But reverence isn't the same as relevance. The result was a film that felt like a museum piece. Beautiful, respectful, and completely inert. Then came Zack Snyder. Man of Steel in 2013 asked, what if Superman arrived in our world, cynical and divided, and people feared him? It was Superman as 9/11 allegory. Superman drenched in muted grays and existential dread. For some people, that worked. But for others, it felt like the character had been buried under the weight of his own mythology. By 2025, that exhaustion had calcified into apathy. Which brings us to James Gunn, who looked at 7 decades of Superman stories and had a radical idea. What if we just made him a person? Not a god, not a symbol. Just a guy from Kansas who happens to have superpowers and is trying his best. The opening shot tells you everything. Superman face down in Antarctic snow, bleeding from the nose, ribs cracked, whistling for his dog. That's not how Superman movies usually start. Most superhero openings establish competence. Here's what the hero can do, here's how powerful they are. Gunn opens with defeat. This creates the gap immediately. The distance between what we expect Superman to be and what we're actually seeing generates the question that drives the entire film. If Superman can be beaten this badly, what does that mean for everyone else? More importantly, what makes him a hero if it's not the power? Where other films spend 45 minutes on Krypton's destruction and Smallville's childhood, Gunn condenses it to 3 sentences of scrolling text. The mythology gets dismissed. The focus shifts entirely to the present moment, a broken man calling for help. You're not watching to see if Superman can win. You're watching to see if he survives. The film answers this by turning vulnerability into a systematic affliction.
83% restored to health. You must rest.
No can do, 4. I gotta get back to the fray.
By the time Superman rushes back into action at 85% recovery, the Fortress robot's warning him to rest his body, screaming for him to stop. That impulsiveness stops being heroic and starts being self-destructive. He holds back his punches and gets hurt because of it. He saves a squirrel while buildings collapse. His refusal to be pragmatic becomes weaponized incompetence. The film builds everything on one decision, with cascading consequences. Superman stopped a war between Baravia and Jarhanpur by threatening President Vassal. No permission, no protocol, just unilateral action backed by godlike power. Everything that follows, Luthor's mobilization, the public turn the Justice Gang's hesitation, the pocket universe trap, stems from that single choice. Where previous Superman films asked, what can Superman do? Gunn asks, what does Superman cost? That cost is measured in broken ribs, failed relationships, and the burden of making impossible choices with no good answers. The visual language reinforces this at every turn. Gunn's camera doesn't soar, it whips. It darts through conversations the way Superman experiences the world. 5 crises at once, always processing. Characters talk over each other, that Guardian's chaos energy. You're experiencing the world at Superman's speed. constantly processing multiple streams of information at once. That kinetic chaos isn't style for style's sake. It's the vulnerability thesis made visual. Superman can't focus. He can't slow down. The editing rhythm doesn't let you or him catch your breath. Where Snyder's palette was grays and blues, drained attempting photorealism, Gunn gives you primary colors that burn. Red looks red, blue looks blue, yellow scorches your retinas. The world feels alive, but overwhelming. This zaniness feels like reading a Silver Age comic while listening to punk rock. Superman's strength is that he won't quit. The film's visual design shows you why that's also his fatal flaw. That chaos isn't just aesthetic, it's diagnostic. It reveals the person trying to hold it all together. The genius of Gunn's approach is treating Clark as the real person, while Superman is the persona. Most Superman stories do the opposite. They treat Superman as the truth, and Clark as the disguise. Gunn reverses this completely. Watch how the film frames Clark at the Daily Planet. He's this clumsy guy, large and awkward, trying to fit into spaces built for normal people. He apologizes when he bumps into desks. He brings coffee for coworkers. Everyone loves him. Not because he's pretending to be weak, but because Clark Kent is fundamentally kind in a way that has nothing to do with superpowers. He doesn't know how to make himself smaller in spaces built for normal people. In a world of cynical antiheroes and corporate metahumans, Clark's refusal to be cynical becomes his most alien trait. His politeness becomes an act of rebellion. His trust becomes radical defiance. In a media landscape saturated with morally gray protagonists who smirk through carnage, Clark believing in people when the world gives you every reason not to, that's the actual subversion. The Justice Gang operates like corporate shills, citing vows and regulations, while Superman bleeds in the streets. Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, they've been refusing to help because of some vow to stay out of politics.
Soup's here to take over the world? I don't know. Probably not. Risk is just not worth the beef between the US government and the Justice Gang.
When they finally intervene, the contrast becomes visually explicit. They move faster to end problems. Superman slows down to save one life. Mr. Terrific kills the kaiju in Glen Morgan Square because it's expedient. For Superman, every life matters, even the monsters.
I was hoping we could capture it and take it to an intergalactic zoo, or at least euthanize it less painfully.
That's not tactical superiority. That's kindness weaponized as moral clarity. He goes out of his way to save everyone, including a squirrel. Yeah, people hate that scene. I loved it. It's absurd, but it's who he is. He has no patience for people not doing the right thing. He yells at them about it. He holds back his punches, and because he holds back, he gets hurt. Which is exactly why he's so vulnerable to someone who weaponizes his goodness. That vulnerability doesn't just make him relatable, it makes him exploitable. This is why the Lois interview scene matters so much. On the surface, they're discussing Baravia. Underneath, they're arguing about trust. Clark thinks it's a date. Lois thinks it's journalism.
Make it up, it's what people on the internet are saying.
I'm gonna go.
He sets up a romantic atmosphere, breakfast for dinner, candles, the whole thing. She brings a recorder. What starts as affection turns into an interrogation. She's pressing him on the political implications of what he did. Who gave him the right to threaten world leaders?
Representative
I
of the
wasn't
United States
representing
will cause
anybody
more
except for me.
problems. I would question myself in the same situation and hold off a beat. Consider the consequences.
People were going to die!
Okay, I'd like to change the subject.
What happens when Superman decides someone needs to be stopped? Clark's getting defensive. He's saying people were going to die. What was he supposed to do, just let them die? Lois is showing him that's exactly the problem. He can't see how terrifying it is that one person gets to make these decisions. When she turns the recorder back on after he turns it off, the scene shifts from intimacy to distance in one gesture. Clark walks out. Superman's certainty is his vulnerability. The film doesn't side with either of them. It shows you the cost of Superman's moral absolutism while respecting why he holds it. What makes them work is how opposed they are. Lois is rational, analytical, skeptical, a journalist who questions everything. Superman only thinks from the heart. He believes everyone is good, that trust should be given freely. They work because they're incomplete without each other. She's a cynic who needs to believe in something real. He's an idealist who needs to be understood. That tension creates the emotional engine of the film. If Clark is the heart of this film, Lex Luthor is its brain. Luthor's entire strategy is built on weaponizing Superman's predictability. He's memorized fight patterns down to the microsecond. He's built Ultraman, a Superman clone, specifically designed to exploit that calculation. Where previous Superman films made the hero's power the solution, Gunn makes it the problem. Superman's strength becomes calculable. His goodness becomes a tactical weakness. Luthor isn't trying to conquer the world, He's trying to prove Superman is a fraud, because he can't comprehend someone who wields power without selfish intent. While Superman is bleeding in the streets, Luthor is in a control room directing the show. That physical distance becomes a metaphor for their entire conflict. Luthor doesn't claim to be evil. He positions himself as humanity's savior against the alien threat.
My envy is a calling. It is the sole hope for humanity because it is what has driven me to annihilating you.
He crowns himself king of half of Jarhanpur, calling it Luthoria, positioning tyranny as salvation. He uses the language of international law, technically our ally, national sovereignty, to justify atrocities. He forces Superman into a moral corner where physical strength is useless. Lex doesn't punch Superman, he gaslights him. For a moment, it works. The corrupted Kryptonian message, rule without mercy, works because it confirms everyone's suspicion about power. Gunn understands that Superman's greatest threat isn't losing his powers, it's losing people's trust in his choice to be good. Mr. Terrific verifies the footage. There's no tampering. It's completely authentic. Superman's entire understanding of why he's on Earth just got shattered. That's not a physical wound. That's an existential one. So he does the only thing he knows how to do. He goes home to Kansas. The movie doesn't resolve this crisis with a big fight. It resolves it with a conversation. Jonathan Kent tells him something simple.
Parents aren't for telling their children who they're supposed to be. Your choices, Clark. Your actions. That's what makes you who you are.
It sounds simple. That's why it lands. Clark's humanity isn't biological. It's learned. What his Kryptonian parents wanted doesn't matter. What matters is what Clark chooses to do. That conversation becomes the thesis statement for everything that follows. The film literalizes this in the Pocket Universe, where Superman's powers are gone entirely. The gap collapses. There's no distance left between Clark and the danger. In every other Superman movie, there's a safety net. He can always punch his way out. Here, he can't. The god becomes mortal. You're watching to see if his heroism was ever about the cape or always about the man underneath it. The moment strips away the mythology and leaves only choice. Metamorpho is forced to hold Superman down with kryptonite while Luthor threatens his son. The film presents heroism as agonizing compromise, not triumphant sacrifice. Superman can't escape alone. He needs Lois, he needs Metamorpho, he needs Krypto. His greatest power in that moment isn't strength, it's trust. Trust that people will choose to do the right thing even when it costs them everything. That trust becomes the answer to Luthor's cynicism. Ultraman serves as the counterpoint, a literal stereotype. Powers without character, strength without struggle. He's stupider, easier to control, acts without internal conflict. By defeating Ultraman, Superman defeats the idea that biology determines identity. Superman doesn't save the world because he was born to, he saves it because he chooses to, despite the pain, the politics, and the betrayal of his own heritage. The clone represents the easy path, the Superman everyone expects. Gunn gives you the harder one. Krypto operates as the film's wild card, the one element Luthor can't predict because dogs don't strategize, they just love. In a movie about calculation versus compassion, Krypto embodies pure instinct. When Superman calls for his dog in the Pocket Universe, it's not just a rescue, it's the thesis made literal. Loyalty doesn't calculate odds, it just shows up. Krypto's attack on Ultraman and the surveillance spheres isn't tactical genius, it's chaos that defeats calculation. The dog becomes the narrative proof that some things, love, trust, loyalty, can't be weaponized because they don't follow predictable patterns. Gunn takes every Superman trope you expect, then inverts it. You expect an origin story? He skips it entirely, starts with defeat. You expect the hero to save himself? He needs his dog, his girlfriend, his friend to escape. You expect the big climax fight? The real resolution is a conversation with his dad. Every inversion serves the thesis. Superman is interesting when he's vulnerable, not just physically, emotionally. The film makes him bleed, yes, but it also makes him doubt, makes him scared, makes him human. That vulnerability transforms Superman from myth into person. The film ends with Superman watching home movies of his childhood, set to I'm a punk rocker. His true fortress isn't the Crystal Palace, it's the memory of a Kansas backyard. Where other Superman films ended with grand declarations or cosmic consequences, Gunn ends with a kid playing. Superman could lean into the alien mythology, the godhood, the power. He chooses the humanity instead. That choice, repeated, reaffirmed, tested under impossible conditions, is what makes him a hero, not the powers, the choice. Gunn's approach splits audiences because it redefines what Superman represents. The movie throws a ton at you: metahuman lore, geopolitical intrigue, identity crisis, relationship conflict. For casual viewers, it can overwhelm. There are shocking moments. Luthor killing Malik Ali, the civilian who once helped Superman. That won't work for everyone. Some people want their Superman simpler, cleaner, less messy. But that messiness is the point. Gunn made a Superman movie that feels like life. Complicated, chaotic, full of impossible choices, where the right answer isn't always clear. The film positions Superman not as the solution to every problem, but as someone who refuses to accept that some problems don't have solutions. His power isn't that he always wins. His power is that he always tries, even when trying might destroy him.
That is where you've always been wrong about me, Lex. I'm as human as anyone. I love, I get scared. I wake up every morning and despite not knowing what to do, I put one foot in front of the other and I try to make the best choices I can. I screw up all the time. But that is being human. And that's my greatest strength.
Every Superman movie before this asked, what can Superman do? Gunn asked, what does Superman cost? That's the difference between mythology and story. It's why this version finally feels human. Not because it made Superman weaker, but because it made his strength matter. Because it showed you what he's willing to sacrifice to keep choosing goodness in a world that punishes him for it. So what do you think? Did Gunn nail it, or does this approach lose what makes Superman, Superman? Let us know down in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching Scene Shift.